Hi, my name is Scott Litz, and I will be demonstrating the project I worked on for course CSC 593 at Arizona State University, which is the culminating experience I chose for the Master of Engineering Science program. I named the project I worked on Project Charger ID, or Project CID for short, and I created a blog that explains how the idea came about, what problem the project is trying to solve, as well as the tools and technologies used, as well as reports about the different sprints that were completed. This all can be located at chargerid.com/blog. I'm not going to spend too much time going over what's already here. So I can get to the demo, but just in general, to understand what this system does, is it's a software system composed of several different components. The goal of the components are to identify areas across the United States that have electric vehicle activity, and in turn use that activity data to manage an online advertising campaign for a company that distributes aftermarket products for electric vehicles, more specifically for what's called electric vehicle supply equipment or charging stations. This project was conducted following the Agile Scrum methodology. I used a tool called taiga.io. It's a free open source project management tool for Agile developers. There I created a backlog of all the work I needed to accomplish to get this project completed. And I created sprints that allowed me to do the work in 2-week chunks. And all the work that I completed in each of those sprints can be found here at this page for my project, which is open to anyone who's interested in looking. The major components of the system are listed here on this blog page, but I'd like to go over them real quick just so the demonstration of the system can be understood. The main component is what I call the update service. And this is what orchestrates getting the data to identify electric vehicle activity, and in turn, making updates to the advertising campaign accordingly. One of the components it uses is called the locator services. It's a web service that interfaces with a third-party web service from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is a part of the Department of Energy. And what they do is this particular web service provides information about publicly available charging stations. And that is what I'm using to determine electric vehicle activity across the country. Next component is the ad services. This is a web service that integrates with Google AdWords so that my system can make updates to an existing AdWords campaign. And finally, there's a user interface component that displays the data that is collected, and it also provides some controls to allow someone to tweak the advertising campaign. All of the code that I wrote for this system is stored at this GitHub repo at github.com/slitz/CID. All the code that I wrote to build the system, which, by the way, I used Microsoft Visual Studio, and all the code is written in C#. This is what the solution structure looks like. There's the ad services that I mentioned, the locator services, the update service, and then there are also supporting projects for shared code like business layer, data layer, configuration, and then there's also a project for tests. And while we are here, before I started recording, I did do a run of all the tests, and as you can see, all are passing. And here we have the user interface I created. This is at the homepage of chargerid.com. It has two representations of the data I'm collecting. The first is a heat map that will plot the data by metropolitan area. So as you can see, each little dot is a metropolitan area that that the system tracks, and I collect data for each one every time the system runs. And here I plot the station counts, the publicly available charging stations, and this allows someone at a glance to see where the most activity is, how the activity is distributed across the country, and it can help to make decisions about where to advertise. Second is just simply a table of the top 25 metropolitan areas, listing in descending order. So as you'll see, there's a control that an administrator of the system can set to determine how many metropolitan areas are targeted in the advertising campaign. So the thought here is that you can, at a glance, you can see what cities are included. Let's say you wanted to include 5 cities in the advertising campaign. You can get an idea of what those would include. If you want to include 10, that's how many more cities that would be involved, and so on. And this page is the admin center of the website. It's access is controlled. A login is required. Once you are logged in, you'll have access to click the admin center and also go back to home. The first panel here is listing the current campaign targets. So this is going out and fetching the data from AdWords and listing here what is currently set up. So here you can see we have 5 cities that the campaign is currently targeting. And here I'll switch over to the actual Google AdWords account, and this shows you the targeted locations are the same as those 5 that show up on the admin console. Second panel here are 3 settings that can be changed. One is the campaign target count. So how many cities do you want to include in your campaign? There's 5 currently listed. You can see the value is set to 6, and I'll explain the difference here in a minute. You can also enable or disable whether or not the system will refresh the data about the number of charging stations. You can also enable or disable whether the system, when it runs, will update the campaign. Finally, the third panel is system info. It's telling you about when the system last ran and when it's scheduled to run again. And it also gives you an option to schedule a run. What this allows you to do is schedule a run to occur within, I put here within 24 hours, because what it does is it'll enable a flag in the database to say that when the system runs, it should run and do work. So the way that the system is currently set up is I have it as a scheduled task on my local computer. So it's right here, Charger ID Update Service. It is an EXE, Charger ID Update Service.exe. It is set to run at 12 a.m. every day. So every day this will trigger, the EXE will run, and the first thing it does is it checks settings in the database to determine whether it should do work, whether it should go and enable data updates, go and refresh the data about the charging stations across the country, and whether or not it should do campaign updates. Basically, it makes that determination based on this next runtime. If the next runtime is the current time or earlier, it's going to run and do the work that is enabled. If the next runtime is not the current time or in the past, the 12 a.m. run that occurs every day will just simply exit and nothing will happen. So I'm going to end this part of the recording. This will be part 1. Please view part 2. Thank you.